What if everything we thought we knew about Princess Diana's wishes was wrong? What if her final vision for the monarchy had been buried, sealed, hidden, and suppressed by the very man who once claimed to love her? In a shocking revelation, Prince William has unearthed a long-concealed letter, one that directly names Catherine as the true Queen Consort. The implications are devastating and irreversible. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The revelation did not arrive quietly. It erupted like a long-buried truth punching upward through decades of royal silence. William's announcement stunned not just the nation, but the monarchy itself. He revealed that the letter, sealed in Diana's unmistakable handwriting, had been hidden deep within Charles's personal archive, a sealed envelope dated only weeks before her tragic death. Its authenticity was undeniable. Handwriting analysts confirmed it within hours. And while the world held its breath, Buckingham Palace's first response was nothing. No denial, no explanation. Just a void, a silence heavy enough to reveal guilt without a single spoken word. It was that silence that troubled officials the most, because it hinted at a truth that could collapse carefully built walls around Charles's legacy. Behind palace doors, shock spread through staff corridors as senior aides realized what this meant. If Diana had truly chosen Catherine as the future Queen Consort, then Charles's decades-long path toward reshaping the monarchy had been built on a suppressed truth. Early signs pointed unmistakably toward intentional concealment. Charles had possession of Diana's personal effects immediately after her death. Many now wonder how many documents were quietly removed, stored, or erased without record. And yet, this one survived, hidden, sealed, tucked away behind layers of royal protocol as if it were a ghost refusing to disappear. For constitutional scholars, the implications were enormous, not because the letter held legal power, but because it carried Diana's moral authority, the authority that once lifted the royal family out of crisis and now threatened to plunge it into another. The emotional fallout began even before the public heard the full story. Catherine, always composed, reportedly broke down upon reading Diana's words for the first time. Sources close to the princess described the moment as overwhelming, like a blessing wrapped in unbearable pressure. Diana had not simply mentioned her, she had written with clarity, warmth, and conviction, describing Catherine as the woman she believed would restore compassion and dignity to the crown. Those close to William say he held the letter with shaking hands as Catherine wept beside him, realizing the weight of a destiny neither of them had sought but could no longer avoid. It wasn't just a message from the past, it was a calling. As word of Catherine's reaction leaked, royal insiders began whispering that this discovery could become worse than the Panorama interview fallout. That interview had shaken the monarchy for years, but this revelation threatened its moral foundation altogether. Because this time, it wasn't Diana exposing the truth. It was her son, her heir, the future king who now felt betrayed by the father who had kept his mother's final wishes locked in silence. And if the monarchy cannot withstand the truth spoken by its future sovereign, then the question becomes whether it can withstand the truth at all. But to understand the chaos now erupting across the monarchy, we must trace the letter's origin and how Charles managed to hide it for nearly 3 decades. Alone in a candle-lit room at Kensington Palace, Princess Diana poured her final fears and dreams into a letter no one was ever meant to see except one person. The contents are now public and the world is reeling. But the truth behind that night is more haunting than anyone imagined. It began with a whispered conversation behind palace doors, one that would shape the last written testament of a woman the world still mourns. According to insiders, Diana had met privately with Queen Elizabeth in the days before she wrote the letter. That meeting, shrouded in royal protocol and rarely spoken of, reportedly left Diana shaken but resolute. Later that night, she sat alone at her writing desk, lit only by a flickering flame, and began to pen what many now consider her final plea to the monarchy. And in the center of that letter, deliberately, unmistakably, she named Catherine, not as a passing comment or hopeful suggestion, but as a declaration. The modern Queen Consort the people deserve. Diana had made her choice, and now, decades later, the crown must reckon with it. Diana's instincts, so often dismissed by those closest to power, once again proved eerily accurate. The letter contains passages that now seem prophetic. In carefully chosen phrases, she warned of a future where her voice would be erased and replaced. She hinted that Charles's pursuit of Camilla's legitimacy would eventually lead to a shadow queen, one who could never embody the public's trust. She feared, above all, that her sons would grow up under a narrative not written by truth, but by convenience. The poetic phrases in the letter, now chilling in retrospect, point to her own mortality. "If my voice ever vanishes, let it be echoed by those who knew my heart," she wrote. And then, turning her attention to William, she issued a gentle command, disguised as a plea: "When the time feels right, seek the truth. You will know what to do." That time, it seems, is now, and William's decision to act has revived a storm many hoped would never return. The letter itself, once thought lost or destroyed, was discovered sealed with a personal signet ring belonging to Diana. Traced back to her private safe at Althorpe, it was meant to be passed to her son in adulthood. But it never reached him, at least. Not until recently. This single act of concealment has sent ripples through the monarchy, raising impossible questions about how many voices have been silenced, how many truths buried under the weight of royal image control. For Catherine, the revelation is both an honor and a burden, a destiny chosen not by her, but by a woman whose voice the world refuses to forget. There's a sacred quality to Diana's final words, not just because of who she was, but because of what she foresaw. She did not write as a bitter ex-wife, but as a mother and symbol of empathy, whose words now carry a weight far beyond her lifetime. And while her letter speaks volumes, the silence that followed it, nearly 30 years long, may be even more damning. But if Diana left such a heartfelt document, how did it vanish for nearly 30 years only to resurface now? After Diana's death, the palace claim aired it wanted privacy and healing. But behind the black-clad grief was something colder, more calculated. Charles reportedly acted swiftly, not just to mourn, but to silence a letter that could upend everything. In the hours after the crash, as mourners gathered and the world grieved, something else entirely was happening behind closed palace doors. According to internal royal logs and recently leaked staff testimonies, Charles moved with alarming speed. Within 48 hours of Diana's passing, he had personally overseen the retrieval of her personal belongings from Kensington Palace, including handwritten journals, locked drawers, and sealed documents. Among them was a plain box no larger than a diary with a coded label, Appendix Windsor 4. That box, it turns out, would hold the key to one of the monarchy's most stunning betrayals. The sealed letter within, written by Diana and marked for future delivery to William, was not lost. It was hidden, buried under layers of protocol, and quietly transferred to Clarence House, far from the public's reach and even further from William's eyes. The instructions Diana left behind were clear. The letter was to be given to William upon his 25th birthday, a time when she believed he would be emotionally and intellectually ready to understand the weight of what she had written. But the birthday came and went. No letter, no mention, and no trace. For years, the royal household maintained that all of Diana's writings had been safely archived or returned to her estate, but documents now surfacing tell a different story. Royal inventories contain an entry redacted in public versions that match the dimensions and category of the sealed box, later found by William. That entry, palace staff now confirm, was deliberately removed from official records sometime in 2003, just a year before Charles announced his engagement to Camilla. What followed was a silence that was anything but accidental. There are now serious claims from former aides that Camilla played a central role in keeping the letter suppressed. Her alleged reasoning? That Diana's final wishes, if made public, would destabilize the monarchy and fuel public unrest. For the sake of stability became a phrase whispered through corridors of power, one used to justify rewriting history to favor a new narrative, one where Diana's voice was never meant to echo. But not everyone agreed. In 2004, Paul Burrell, Diana's former butler, hinted in an interview that something precious and private had gone missing from Diana's effects. He stopped short of naming it. Weeks later, he withdrew from the public eye, reportedly after receiving an official warning from senior royal intermediaries. Now, in the glare of a new crisis, those same decisions are under fire. Sources close to the palace claim Charles feared the letter would not only complicate his marriage to Camilla but also cast a long and discrediting shadow over his eventual coronation. By hiding Diana's letter, he was attempting to secure not just the throne but the public's memory. And yet, as history shows time and again, buried truths have a way of resurfacing at the worst possible moment. In this case, the moment came in the form of William, standing before a locked cabinet, opening a box marked with a code only his mother had referenced in her will. But if Charles hid it, how did William finally discover it, and why now? For years, William stayed silent. But the betrayal didn't end with the letter, it was the years of lies, of pretending Diana's wishes didn't matter. Now, he's broken the palace code of silence, and he's not holding back. It began as a private moment of remembrance, a quiet family memorial meant to mark yet another year without Diana. But this year, something changed. William, clutching a folded sheet of aged parchment in his hands, stood before a small group of family and confidants. His voice was unsteady, almost trembling, as he began to read aloud. The words weren't his, they were hers, Diana's. The silence in the room was suffocating. Each sentence he read cut through the facade the royal family had built over decades. He paused only once, his voice breaking as he reached the line where Diana wrote, "Catherine will be the queen the people feel in their hearts." Those in the room were not prepared. No one was. The grief was old, but the betrayal was new. What followed behind palace walls would fracture the House of Windsor more deeply than any scandal in recent memory. Sources confirm that within 24 hours of that reading, William demanded a private audience with his father. The conversation was brutal. No advisors, no scripts, no press handlers, just a son and a king with decades of suppressed truth erupting in a single storm of confrontation. William didn't hesitate. "You buried her legacy," he told Charles, refusing to lower his tone. The accusation hung heavy, each word soaked in pain. There was no ambiguity. William held Charles accountable not just for hiding the letter, but for rewriting Diana's voice, for allowing the monarchy to move forward while silencing the woman whose sacrifice had kept it from collapsing. The fury wasn't just about history, it was about present damage. William called out what many had only whispered, that Camilla had benefited from a silenced queen's dream, that by suppressing Diana's letter, they hadn't merely protected the crown, they had altered its destiny. And now that truth had come home, crashing through every royal narrative with the force of Diana's memory. In the days that followed, insiders reported tension boiling into silence across royal residences. William refused photo O. Charles cancelled appearances. And Catherine, caught between duty and devastation, reportedly pleaded with William not to go public with the full story. But William's mind was made. The era of silence was over. The emotional toll on King Charles, those close to him claim, has been profound. In one rare moment of vulnerability, he reportedly whispered, "I thought I was protecting the crown." But even that confession failed to ease the weight pressing on his legacy. William is no longer the deferential heir. He is a son wounded by omission, by the strategic forgetting of a mother who deserved more than what the palace gave her. The emotional fracture between father and son has deepened into something colder, quieter, and more dangerous. As of now, there is no plan for reconciliation, no joint statements, no public gestures, just a chasm that grows with every headline, every word Diana once wrote now echoing through the monarchy's gilded halls, like a warning that was never meant to be ignored. As the House of Windsor spirals, one woman stands at the center of the storm, Catherine. She never asked for this. Yet in the most unexpected way, Catherine has been called not by the crown, but by Diana herself. In a letter now etched into history, the late princess declared the future she saw. And in it, Catherine was queen. It was never meant to be a coronation of sentiment, but the letter changed everything. In her own handwriting, Diana mentioned Catherine not once, but twice, with a calm yet prophetic tone. She described her as poised, strong, the mother the nation needs. It wasn't political, it wasn't strategic, it was personal. Catherine was not chosen by tradition, bloodline, or seniority, but by the one voice the monarchy can never truly silence. The weight of those words has since eclipsed every royal title she's held. And in the stillness of a private reading, wit, Princess Anne at her side, Catherine reportedly broke down. She wasn't grieving, she was overwhelmed, because for the first time, her place in the monarchy wasn't being defined by protocol, it was being defined by purpose. But this newfound purpose came with unbearable tension. Catherine found herself at the center of a storm she never sought to command. According to royal sources, she spent hours in isolation after reading the letter, torn between reverence for Diana's wish and fear of what fulfilling it might cost the family. The monarchy was already cracking beneath the weight of Charles and William's fractured bond. To move forward publicly now as the figure Diana envisioned could tear that break into something irreparable. She knew the stakes. She knew the eyes of the world were watching. And yet, for Catherine, duty had always meant standing firm in silence, not stepping forward in declaration. Until now. Outside the palace, the world began drawing its own conclusions. Images of Catherine navigating the crisis with quiet dignity were spliced next to old clips of Diana, the parallels too striking to ignore. Commentators who once doubted her resolve now praised her restraint. Public sentiment surged. Hashtags like the People's Queen and Diana's Choice trended globally within hours. It was no longer about royal hierarchy, it had become a moral reckoning. For many, Catherine now embodied everything Diana had once symbolized: empathy, resilience, and a profound connection to the public's emotional pulse. Her silence had become its own kind of leadership. And yet, behind palace gates, pressure mounted. Advisors urged Catherine to remain neutral, to let the storm pass. But neutrality was no longer possible. Her name was already etched in history by a woman who died trying to be heard. The public had made their feelings clear. They saw Catherine not as a consort in waiting, but as the rightful continuation of Diana's legacy. And that realization was more powerful than any crown. It wasn't about replacing anyone. It was about fulfilling a wish that had been sealed away for too long. But while the public rallies behind Catherine, Camilla's silence has only made one question louder. What did she know? She built her position in the shadows of a scandal, but now the shadows are creeping back. Camilla has not made a single public statement since the letter surfaced. Behind the palace gates, sources describe something darker than silence: rage, isolation, and desperation. From the moment William made Diana's letter public, Camilla vanished. All public engagements were suddenly cancelled. No walkabouts, no appearances, no press releases, just silence. And yet, that silence wasn't peaceful, it was storm-like. One palace staffer claims that upon hearing William's words, Camilla hurled a crystal vase against the wall of her private sitting room. The sound, sharp and shattering, echoed through the corridors like the fracturing of her carefully protected image. This wasn't just about a letter, it was about legitimacy. For decades, Camilla had fought to be accepted, to be seen not as a threat, but as a partner to the crown. And now, in a single stroke, Diana's voice had returned not with vengeance, but with clarity, and Camilla's title stood on dangerously shaky ground. The ripple effects were immediate. Camilla's once loyal advisors began stepping back one by one. Meetings were postponed indefinitely. Former allies refused to comment. Behind closed doors, it was as if a fortress was being dismantled from within. Those who once championed her rise were now distancing themselves, afraid that the fallout might spread further than anyone anticipated. Some insiders speculate that even Camilla had been in the dark, that Charles never revealed the existence of the letter to her. If that's true, the betrayal is twofold. The monarchy's future shifted, and her own husband withheld the very document that could undermine everything she had built. Yet Camilla is not without her own strategies. Whispers from inside the palace suggest that she's been quietly assembling her version of events, what some are calling a counter-narrative. The goal? To reframe her legacy before it's defined for her, to cast doubt on Diana's intentions, to paint herself not as an intruder, but as the steady hand who guided a fractured family through modern times. Whether this narrative will see the light of day remains uncertain, but its mere preparation speaks volumes. Camilla knows the stakes, and for her, silence is no longer about discretion, it's about survival. King Charles, meanwhile, is reportedly walking a tightrope of loyalty and damage control. Sources claim he has pleaded with Camilla not to retaliate. "Don't wage war on the dead," he is said to have warned, his voice strained and broken. But for a woman who has fought decades of public scorn to sit beside a king, the idea of fading quietly into irrelevance may be unthinkable. And as the world cheers Catherine's calm ascent, Camilla's silence has become less a mark of grace and more a question of strategy. What is she planning? And how far will she go to protect what's left? But while Camilla hides, others are stepping forward, royals with knowledge of the letter's journey and the truth behind its concealment. The silence is finally broken. Princess Anne and Prince Edward have come forward not to defend Charles but to confirm what many feared. Diana's wishes were known and deliberately ignored. The palace walls are beginning to talk. It began as a whisper in the corridors, but now it is a thunderclap. In private yet unmistakably clear terms, both Anne and Edward have acknowledged their knowledge of Diana's final letter. Anne, ever direct, confirmed she had read a preliminary draft in early 1997, months before Diana's untimely death. She was visiting Kensington Palace when Diana, with cautious optimism, handed her the folded pages and asked for her opinion. Anne has remained tight-lipped for decades, but according to a senior source, she recently confided that the letter left no doubt about Diana's vision for the future. Catherine was her chosen successor, a bridge between the monarchy and the people. Anne didn't share it at the time, she didn't think it would be necessary. But now, her silence feels like complicity. Edward's admission cuts deeper still. In the early 2000s, after Charles had begun quietly consolidating his path toward marrying Camilla, Edward reportedly urged his older brother to disclose the letter to William. "It will surface when you least expect it," he warned. But Charles, already balancing political pressures and public skepticism, refused to budge. The monarchy was shifting, and in his eyes, Diana's final wish was a threat to be managed, not a truth to be honored. That decision, Edward now believes, was a grave mistake. In recent days, he has expressed regret to close aides, admitting that his loyalty to royal unity prevented him from doing what he knew in his heart was right. The emotional weight of these confessions is not lost on anyone. For years, the public viewed the monarchy as a unified front, but now, with Anne and Edward breaking ranks, a rare fracture has formed at the highest levels of royal blood. And it's not just a disagreement, it's a moral reckoning. Anne has reportedly told those close to her that she supported Catherine from the beginning. She has Diana's clarity, she said, and none of her protection. That single sentence, insiders say, reveals the depth of Anne's own guilt, that he saw the same light Diana did, yet allowed history to drift in a different direction. Now the questions turn inward. If Anne and Edward knew, who else did? How many private secretaries, legal aides, or senior courtiers were part of the circle of concealment? What meetings took place in the aftermath of Diana's death, not to grieve, but to decide what truths to suppress? And most damning of all, was the silence a coordinated effort or a passive betrayal of the woman whose voice still shapes the public's trust? But this documentary isn't just about a letter. It's about the throne and who truly deserves to sit upon it. What began as a hidden letter has exploded into a constitutional crisis. Across the UK and beyond, the question on everyone's lips is no longer what happened, but what happens now, and the nation may never see the crown the same way again. The firestorm ignited by Diana's letter has left more than just emotional debris in its wake. It has shaken the foundation of the monarchy itself. In the days following the revelation, a public petition demanding that Catherine be formally acknowledged as Diana's rightful successor surged past 1 million signatures. The campaign isn't a fringe outcry. It is a populist wave sweeping across cities and villages alike. Outside palace gates, crowds gather with placards that read "Queen by legacy" and "Catherine, the people's choice." For many, it is not about breaking tradition. It is about correcting a silenced truth. Diana's voice, buried for decades, has now become a rallying cry, and Catherine has been thrust into the center of a movement she never intended to lead. But movements have power, and power, when unacknowledged, begins to shake institutions. Legal experts, historians, and constitutional scholars have flooded the airwaves, weighing the implications of Diana's letter. While most agree the document holds no legal authority, its moral weight is immeasurable. Some argue that the monarchy has long operated on tradition as much as law, and this, they say, is a tradition restored. Others warn that reorienting the monarchy based on public emotion could set a precedent too volatile to contain. But for a nation increasingly disillusioned by quiet palace cover-ups and staged unity, this isn't about legality. It's about justice, it's about loyalty, and above all, it's about legacy. In the middle of it all stands William. The future king, once trained to walk the line between crown and conscience, now finds himself split by both. Insiders say he has retreated from public view, to weigh what cannot be unspoken anymore. Should he use his position to assert what his mother wanted? Or should he preserve the system he is destined to inherit, even if it means turning his back on the truth? Catherine, ever composed, has refused to push. But those close to her say the pain behind her eyes speaks volumes. She never asked for the throne, but she cannot unsee what Diana saw in her. King Charles, according to reports, is torn between a father's guilt and a monarch's burden. There is talk of a symbolic recognition, a gesture that would publicly honor Diana's wishes without formally altering royal succession. But the proposal has met resistance from both within and outside the palace. Some fear that acknowledging the letter lends legitimacy to every decision Charles has made since Diana's passing. Others worry it may incite civil unrest from royalists who view any elevation of Catherine outside traditional succession as heretical. The monarchy is now trapped between an invisible mandate from the past and a tidal wave of public opinion in the present. The once unified perception of the royal family has splintered. On one side stand those who uphold the crown as unchanging and sacred. On the other, a growing collective who believe that Diana's voice still defines the moral center of the monarchy. The lines have blurred, the roles have shifted, and what was once unthinkable is now being discussed in headlines and homes across the Commonwealth. As the world watches, only one move remains, a revelation that will either heal or destroy what's left of the royal family's unity. Just when the monarchy thought it had braved the storm, another letter has surfaced. A second sealed envelope, addressed solely to William, held back until this very moment. Its contents are more than personal, they're final, and they may change everything. Again. In a stunning move that blindsided both the public and palace officials, Prince William stepped forward at a surprise press conference, holding a small cream envelope with the unmistakable handwriting of his mother. At his side stood Catherine, still, composed and silent. The weight of what was about to unfold hung in the air like thunderclouds before a downpour. William took a breath, then opened the envelope. The second letter, believed to have been tucked inside a hidden pocket of Diana's personal journal, was dated just 4 days after the first. It was shorter, more pointed, and written with a sense of urgency that felt almost prophetic. Diana, in her unmistakable voice, didn't just speak to her son, she commanded him. She asked him to remember who he was, and who she had raised him to be. Follow what the people feel in their hearts, she wrote, not what tradition forces you to accept. The letter was a bombshell. It named no titles, but it named truths. Diana warned of betrayal, specifically calling out those who benefit from silence. There was no ambiguity. This was her last stand against a system she no longer trusted to protect her legacy or her sons. She reminded William that leadership comes not from a throne, but from conviction. And then, with a line that has since reverberated across the globe, she left him with a final instruction: don't let them rewrite us. That sentence alone seemed to silence the room, and within minutes it began trending across every digital platform. Printed on posters, shared in schools, whispered in homes. It was no longer just a message, it was a movement. But William didn't stop with the letter. He ended the press conference by unveiling something no one had expected: a sweeping new royal legacy initiative created in Diana's name. It would refocus the monarchy's outreach toward mental health, women's empowerment, and child welfare. And standing as its symbolic and strategic head, Catherine, not as consort, not as support, but as Diana's chosen successor, appointed not through bloodline, but through purpose. It was William's way of honoring his mother's words while carving a future that no decree or protocol could reverse. And as Catherine stepped forward to accept her role, there was no speech, no proclamation. Just a nod of acknowledgement and the unmistakable echo of Diana's belief finally coming to life. The royal family has not officially responded. But behind palace walls, the silence is heavy. This second letter didn't just reignite the fire, it redefined the battlefield. This is no longer a debate about titles. It's about truth, voice, and legacy. The second letter wasn't just Diana's farewell, it was her final act of defiance. And now, it's William's torch to carry. The monarchy can either evolve or remain shackled by the silence it once used as armor. Because now, the world is watching not for ceremony, but for courage. The battle for truth has just begun, and the world will never forget the woman who dared to name her queen, even after death. Subscribe now so you don't miss what happens next in this unraveling royal legacy. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.